Dear guests, welcome to the Watcher TV. It is my pleasure to welcome you here in the special format of the Watcher Post EU, which is called the Watcher Poll. The Watcher Poll started a few weeks ago in Rome and it's gonna continue ahead of the European elections here in Brussels. From the heart of the EU institutions, we're gonna welcome more than 25 guests from more than 15 countries. It is my special pleasure to open this special program with our colleague from Finland, Mr. Ville Sipilainen, who is now currently GSK Government Affairs Director, but was serving as political advisor to the Minister of Defense of Finland. Ville, welcome to the Watcher Poll.
Thank you.
We know, and this is where I would like to start from, the past legislature of the European Parliament has been very exciting due to COVID that has happened, due to war in Ukraine that broke, due to very challenging situation that we are having currently in the Middle East. I know that you are now here having a role of GSK Government Affairs Director, but I would like to comment a little bit. What do you see as the key elements and key files and key moments of the current, or let's say a past legislature of the European Parliament?
There's quite many. First that comes to mind is the European Green Deal. That was a big thing, of course. Then we had also the Digital Services Act, Digital Markets Act. But I would say that the most important was the Recovery and Resilience Facility, 637 billion or 673 billion euros, so quite a lot. And it was maybe also the most controversial because it has the element of common loans, which from my understanding are not allowed, but so it at least created a lot of discussion and a lot of opposition. For me personally, I of course look very closely at the general pharmaceutical legislation, but that's for the personal reasons.
But pharmaceutical legislation it initiated, but hasn't been finished.
So no, it's still ongoing, yeah.
Yes, so the new parliament will need to deal with it.
Yeah.
What do you think, where Europe will go? Will Europe allow its pharmaceutical industry and also the one from abroad, from outside the European Union, to basically be built and attract investment in this sector in the European Union?
Pharmaceutical industry is very global. When you have a new innovation and find a new medicine, it's not only a Europe product or US product. So it's a must. We have to, in the pharmaceuticals, you have to be able to cover the whole world. And I think Europe is doing a great job in there.
Do you think that Europe invests enough in research and development, or there are still rooms for progress and innovation as well?
Yeah, I think there is, and there is a lot of room for also protecting the innovations. So the intellectual property rights, we need to safeguard those. But yes, research, development, innovation is the way we can keep ahead of the competition. And unfortunately, we are falling back.
What are the key elements when you say that we are falling back when we are comparing ourselves with the competition? Where can we improve more? Is that education? Is that the legal framework? Is that the financial instruments? Which area?
Maybe almost everything. So education, for example, we need to step up our game. So we are falling back on that. You look at the best universities in the world, the most of them are in US. And but then of course there's the single market, which is not really functioning right now.
not single.
Not single, and I think the biggest problem there is the supply chains. When you look at US, if you as an individual you order something from California and you are living in Florida, it comes the next day because the supply chains are so well created. But in Europe we still have web shops that are country specific, which doesn't make sense. And there we had a lot of work to be done, and also scale up to be done, because we don't get Amazons in Europe or European Amazons if we are not creating a good supply chain and crossing the borders.
So supply chain is basically, we heard that and we see that in many analyses, a big, how to say, weak point of the European Union. So you hope that the next mandate of the European institution is going to strengthen that, and that the supply chain is going to be better and secured in the European Union?
Yeah. We have the, now that we have the recovery and resilience facility, we should use that money also to create infrastructure and to be able to at some point reach the similar kind of a single market that they have in US.
But when we talk also about the single market, we have to touch also the question of the labor force. What do you think should be done in order to have our labor force fit for the new age? We see now that the artificial intelligence is in many discussions put in relation to the labor force. There are some, of course, extremist groups which are basically threatening people, saying that the artificial intelligence is going to take over your job. In pharmaceuticals, you were using artificial intelligence for a very long period of time. But what do you think that can be done when it comes to the labor force and that people are fit for the new age?
First of all, I think we have to embrace the new age. We have to embrace the artificial intelligence, the digital tools that we have and we have gotten used to after COVID and during COVID. But then we need to also embrace the new flexibility. We know that the European population is aging, so we need all hands on deck, and there's a lot of people without jobs who could work, but they don't have the means. So let's find the solutions through the digital tools that we have. But of course, first and foremost, education. We need to invest in education that we are fit for the future. But it cannot be done just alone with the public sector, because, again, look at the US. They have much more cooperation between industry and the universities, for example, and that ensures that the future workforce will meet the needs of the employers better.
Last year in the EU was the European Years of Skills. Is that enough? What are, I mean, our digital skills when we compare to the rest of the world are not so bad. But then where is the hole? Where the problem starts? In the appliance, in the labor force which leaves the European Union, in migration? Where can we improve?
I think it's lots to do with the working culture. So we still have some employers, companies, we see that they are fighting back. They are not embracing the opportunities that the new digital age is giving us. And for example, remote working. After we were all, we had to do remote work during COVID. But then after COVID, some companies wanted to go back and give the ultimatums that people have to be in the office. And of course, there is some kind of a hybrid solution for everything. But I think that the new and younger population doesn't really want to go back to the yesteryear.
But when we talk about new and younger population and also innovation, what we mentioned before, do you think that the EU has adopted the first AI Act, but many companies have reacted saying that it's not leaving enough space for innovation? Did you see it, and how do you see it for the future? Do we need more regulation or less regulation, and where the human being as such is it in it?
Yeah, I think that the problem with EU, or one of the biggest problems, is that we are trying to create growth by regulation, and it's understandable because the regulation is almost only tool that the Commission has. So when we have a saying in Finland, if you have a hammer, all the problems look like nails. And that is something that we can adapt in the EU legislation. So we are trying to legislate and regulate industry that we don't really know yet. We don't know where the AI space is going and what are the opportunities, but we are trying to regulate it beforehand. Of course, there is problems, there is a negative effects, but let's regulate those when we see them and be much more agile than trying to do this big framework and trying to predict the future.
Yeah, now let's go back to Finland, when we already mentioned Finland, not because these days it's warmer in Finland and Lapland than it is here in Brussels, but because I would like to ask you, when you also mentioned hybrid and hybrid threats, you are very close to Russia. The situation that we are seeing now is very challenging for the whole global environment. You were serving as an advisor and political advisor to the Minister of Defense also when Finland joined the NATO. How is the situation now currently in Finland, and how do you see European position for the future when it comes to war that is going on in Ukraine?
First of all, the world is indeed a more dangerous place, but the situation in Finland is that we are better prepared than ever, and the NATO membership has sort of fulfilled our defense. So now we are not alone. We have a strong own defense, and we are investing heavily in it. But it's good to have friends. When it comes to Europe, I think Europe is waking up. US has again saved us too many times, and now, very slowly, but still there is movement, and we are actually creating something in the defense industry field, and that's just what we need. More integration, more strategic autonomy, but then when it comes to the real weapons systems, we have to ensure that they are top of the class, because, for example, Finland, if it spends a billion for a weapon system, it doesn't buy European just because it wants to be a nice neighbor. It buys the best. So if we want to improve, we need to be in the top level. But luckily, at least some of the countries are really waking up right now.
Also, we have the announcement, basically, or the promise, as you would like to see it, from President von der Leyen in case she is elected again president or appointed president of the European Commission, that she will appoint special commissioner for defense. Do you support this idea, and do you believe that in the next term of the European institutions, more money and EU funds is going to be invested in the EU defense industry?
First of all, the defense commissioner, we have NATO, so we don't really need a defense commissioner per se, but we need indeed a more cooperation in the field of defense industry. So whatever the name of the new commissioner is, or how his title is, it's not should compete with NATO. EU shouldn't meddle with the military things, but the defense industry is something definitely that needs more working together. And sure, we need to invest. Of course, we see that Russia is investing a lot. So, but we all together are much bigger as an economy power than Russia. So if we are really working together and investing, we don't have to worry about anything.
Absolutely, but when we talk about European foreign and security strategy, there were many discussions and many were saying that basically in the past it was impossible to bring all the Europeans together. We see that NATO is basically growing. We have 2 members, EU and Sweden recently. But at the same time that many things are going on in the European defense itself. You said, okay, we do not need a new commissioner for defense, but at the same time, how Europe can position itself in the global challenges that we are facing now. That is strong support for NATO, but at the same time, we still have some of the NATO members which are not members of the EU. So where is the common interest?
I think it's in the geographical area, and it's I think we are moving into the world where there is 2 poles against each other. So there is the autocratic countries versus democracies, and democracies are the winners if they want to be, but if we don't work together, we let the dark side win. So so yes, there is a lot of things that EU could do in a global scale, and of course EU needs to be a stronger voice when it comes to the global security and stability. But that doesn't mean traditional warfare. It means climate change. It means the rule of law that we have problems with, and that's how EU should and has also positioned itself.
But when we talk about the future that we see for the European Union, I would like to touch upon enlargement. We mentioned before NATO is enlarging, but where do you see that enlargement is going to be on the agenda for the next European Commission? War in Ukraine brought the idea of Ukraine joining the European Union very high on the agenda, while at the same time we still have the situation in the Western Balkan where some of the countries are candidate countries, some of them launched the negotiations. But everyone can agree that in the previous mandate, prior to the war in Ukraine, enlargement was not very high on the agenda because some countries were not in favor of it. What do you think that will happen in the next mandate? I mean, can we expect that someone is going to join in the next mandate? It's not very likely based on the experience from the previous enlargement circles. But where the topic itself is going to be?
Yeah, I think it depends on, do we see enlargement as a tool to spreading democracy and spreading welfare, or do we stick to the rules that if you want to join the club, you need to fulfill the member requirements, and this has been the main topic of the discussion, and I think that the EU doesn't stand for a sort of a countries that are helping projects. We need, of course, to help our neighbors that are in the vicinity of EU, but the membership is not the solution. Membership comes when you have developed enough to the level that is required.
Good. And now in the European campaign in Finland, what are the main topics? What do candidates and those who want to be elected are asked mainly, and what do they discuss, and what are seen as the priorities?
Yeah, the topics of course vary from the bottle caps that are attached to the bottle all the
That
way.
is not only topic in Finland, in some other countries as well.
All the way to the big security questions. So there is not really, it depends so much on the candidates. Of course, you know, some want to emphasize the economic questions, some want to emphasize the climate change questions, and there is not a clear line in that.
But do Finnish people feel the EU, and do they connect, and are they gonna vote in the European elections, or for them Brussels is something far, 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 far away?
I think Brussels has grown closer to Finland. I think also the COVID, the Russian war in Ukraine has made people realize that we need to have this bigger family. We are so far up north that if we are left alone, we are not going to survive. So I think people are much more interested in EU questions. Of course, EU would have a lot to do also on that front, because there is for example, the recovery and resilience facility. There was a big debate, lots of news how much EU is spending money, but then there is not so much news on what EU has done with the money and what it has brought for the citizens.
My last question is, which result do you predict for Finland and also overall for the European Union, and whom do you think, at least the party, is going to lead the EU in the next mandate?
EPP, I think it's clear that the EPP in all the scenarios is the key party. But of course, it's interesting to see who are the others, in what company EPP has to be in, and I think in Finland it's also clear that the Kokoomus party, which is part of the EPP, will be the biggest one, as it has been many years.
So EPP is going to be on the top also when it comes to the European Commission, you expect?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Ville.
Thanks.
Thank you very much for watching our first interview in the Watcher poll here from UTOPIA Studios from Brussels. Please stay tuned.